I typed in fart, and I have emails going all the way back to September 11th of 2009.
2009.
2009. And it's a lot of messages where the word fart's been used.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Hello, everybody. Despite technical difficulties that we were having here a moment ago, it is time for more Law Light.
Yes.
Brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtree, FWHlegal.com. And we are situated today in the library studio at 530 Frederica Street in the high-rise white brick edifice. And PJ is with me.
Yes.
Good day to you, sir.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. I was just looking at my calendar, and between now and the end of October, I have 8 depositions on the calendar, and between November 1st and the end of November, I have 12. So between now and the end of November, I have 20 depositions on my calendar.
Holy crap.
Yes. So I'm going to be doing a lot of work to get ready for depositions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if you just do them, if you do like 2 a day consecutively, you'll just get them over with real fast.
But the problem with that is that they're on the calendar and scheduled at miscellaneous times. I'll be going all over the place, going to Cincinnati and Lexington and all over. So anyway.
Okay, I have heard of this.
What?
The Jon Grudin thing.
Why are you jumping right into that? We were going to build up to that.
Was there a build-up?
There was going to be build-up to that story. So before we get to Jon Grudin,
and I'm not a sports guy, so I just ruined it.
I want to talk about the 5 people in Norway that were killed with a bow and arrow.
Okay.
So, is it Norway?
It was in Norway.
Norway. 5 people today or yesterday were killed.
There we go.
By someone who was using a bow and arrow.
It was a 37-year-old Danish citizen believed to have killed 5 people because he over concerns that they believe he was radicalized by a Muslim extremist group. He was charged on Thursday in connection with bow and arrow rampage in a small town in Norway. It was an apparent act of terrorism, is what it says.
So let's talk about this for a second. When was the last time in the news that you heard of any act of terrorism that was perpetrated by one wielding a bow and arrow?
It's never that I can think of. I'm going to look up bow and arrow attacks and see if this is something that does happen. Because here's the thing that I find interesting is that, okay, so big news for horror fans, Halloween Kills comes out tonight.
Wow, the trailer for that movie has me spooked already.
Yeah, so I haven't watched the new trailer, which is probably the one you've seen.
Yes.
And the last one I watched, I'm like, how many kills can be left in the movie considering how many that they show in the trailer?
Well, I'm telling you, the trailer I saw, I was like, that's enough for
what I have seen.
That's enough Halloween for me.
Well, I'm a huge Michael Myers fan.
Now, what point were you making about bows and arrows?
So with the whole Halloween Kills coming out, there's a scene in the movie, and I'm sure you've probably seen this part of the trailer, where Michael comes out of a burning house and he slaughters a whole group of firefighters.
Yes.
Okay. There is a petition going around by a person who is an up-and-coming firefighter who is wanting them to remove that scene because he says it's offensive and that Michael should not be, they should not be showing the slaughtering of heroes, basically. Of course, where was this guy at or anybody at, when he killed an electrician in the fourth movie where he broke into one of those like big transformer areas that has like all the power lines and stuff, and he picked this guy up and threw him and killed him. Well, the guy was a simple power worker.
Yeah, but he's clearly a non-union power worker because if he was unionized, the union would say something. There would have been an uproar.
Well, anyway, so Michael kills anybody. I mean, he killed a kid in the last movie.
He's not discriminatory about those he kills.
Right. It doesn't matter what color you are.
But has he ever killed anybody with a bow and arrow?
No, he's never killed anybody with a bow and arrow. But here's where I'm going at with this. The guy, in part of the guy's argument, he stated that the reason it's concerning that they have this in the movie is because it consistently happens where someone will set a fire purposely to lure first responders and firefighters, rescuers, whoever, to a scene and then attempt to kill them. And he says that's why it's negative, because it's using that as a plot device in the movie, and that's what he finds offensive. Now, that's not exactly what the plot device is. However, it made me go, I wonder how much validity there is to what this guy is saying. So I looked it up, and I was surprised at how many times actual fires have been started where then the first responders show up and they are fired upon or attempted to be killed or actually have been killed by someone who did it purposely to just kill the first responders.
Really?
Like, it is a real thing. So I say all that to say this. But you don't ever hear about that. How many times have you heard a story where someone sets a fire on purpose?
This is the first one.
Right. So
first time I've ever heard of that.
So this is the first time I've heard of someone using a bow and arrow to attack and kill people. But I guarantee you it's happened before.
It seems like you would hear a story about a bow and arrow killing a person. Okay? Like back in the day, I know that this is going to shock you, PJ, but there was a time when I was a mighty bow hunter.
Really?
Yes. When I first moved to Owensboro, my ex-wife, she had grown up here, and the friends of hers that she had run around with had married guys who were all hunters. And when I moved here, I knew no one, right? And so I began to fraternize with these hunters, and I quickly realized that if I wanted to have something to do kind of like, guy time, I was going to have to learn how to hunt. And so
I think I do remember you saying something about this before.
I get into this hunting. Well, I did enjoy the bow hunting aspect because even though the bows are like real high tech compound bows that, we're not talking about like they do still make what's called a recurve bow that looks kind of like what the Native Americans would have used,
Right.
But not, what I was hunting with had a cable system with pulleys, and it was so many feet per second. I mean, it was like, really, really high tech, but I enjoyed it because It still felt more primitive. It still was a challenge. It wasn't like, oh, there's an animal, I pull a trigger and kill it.
Yeah.
It
puts more sport into the hunting aspect.
When you would see either the turkey or the deer coming through the woods, you had to quietly draw back this bow and get into a position to shoot.
Yeah.
You had to wait for a perfect shooting angle and then let it go.
Yeah.
Now, here's the reason I say that is I got pretty good at shooting that bow. I could take 6 arrows and put them in like a pie pan at 30 yards,
Right.
And so I was pretty good at it.
Is this leading up to you admitting that you've murdered someone with a bow and arrow?
What I'm saying, I'm building up to the point that to be able to kill 5 people with a bow and arrow before they figure out hey, this is coming from somewhere, let's disperse,
Right.
It's amazing to me that the person could get off 5 shots that are deadly accurate enough to kill 5 people with a bow. It's like the first person to get stuck. Right now, does it say it happened all at once, or was it kind of like a serial killer, and these were all like over a period of time, or does it say? You see what I'm getting at? Being able to, I can't believe we're having this dark topic, kill 5 people with a bow and arrow at one time. That is amazing to me that it could happen that way.
According to this, it was all at once, and it was
no way.
Yeah, it was 4 women and a man between the ages of 50 and 70, and then 3 other people were wounded. So he hit more than just the 5.
So he killed
5 of the 8.
He got off 8 arrows. So these people were either limited in some way with their ability to escape where they were. You see what I'm saying? It sounds like some were older, so maybe they weren't mobile. But still, the idea of 8 people.
Oh, well, hold on a minute.
Go ahead, yeah.
The bow and arrows were just part of his arsenal. Police have not said what else he used, but Associated Press was told by, I guess, one of the officers that when he ran towards the sound of the screaming, he saw a woman being stabbed by a man with some kind of weapon.
Okay, so this guy wasn't using just a bow and arrow.
Right, so he was using other things as well. So he must have killed 5 people, but he did use a bow and arrow. So it's almost clickbait, the way they write the headline.
Like, okay, yeah, wow. Okay, well, what a great way to start our podcast. We go from me telling you that I have 20 depositions between now and the end of November to talking about people being stabbed and killed with bows and arrows and knives.
Right.
And this is the way that you control the podcast, you slasher film producer.
That's right. Well, and I did talk a little bit about Halloween Kills and how excited I am.
You have dominated this subject. But in all fairness to you, you tried to start off on the topic that I wanted to talk about.
That you were interested in, right?
And I
jumped the shark a little.
I said, stop that, PJ. Stop.
Let's talk about death and dying.
Let's talk about your headline. But I had no idea you were going to hijack the first 10 minutes of the podcast. Yeah.
Well, it happens.
Okay, here we go.
It wasn't my plan.
All right, we live in a time when one of the biggest money-making industries for recreation is the NFL. You would agree.
Right.
I mean, during football season, any given Sunday around our country, there are millions of dollars generated in ticket sales, in memorabilia, all of the jerseys, all of that, and the money that is made by advertising, endorsements. I mean, it's just a multi-billion.
It's astronomical.
Yes, right. So it is a big time, industry in America, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, and
we're talking Walmart big,
right? And you remember bigger than Walmart. Yeah. You remember some of the headlines that, like, when there were players who were refusing to stand up for the national anthem.
Right.
And, the NFL came through and said, look, as much as some may disagree with not standing up for the national anthem, our country gives people the freedoms and the liberties to express their beliefs in a way that is not violent, and that's where and so, the NFL has been, I would say, a forerunner on being politically correct, on being a forerunner on equality, and tolerance of alternative lifestyles and things like that. They are a forerunner in that. Because they are in the news, I think that they are very very cognizant of the image that could be tarnished if they were not proactive in that. Okay.
Right.
So that as a backdrop, there is a football team in the NFL, the Raiders, the Oakland Raiders, and they moved just recently to Las Vegas. So they're now the Las Vegas Raiders. And their head coach is a guy named Jon Grudin. Now, Jon Grudin had won a Super Bowl, I don't know how many years ago, when he was the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who won the Super Bowl last year.
Right.
Well, they hadn't won a Super Bowl before that, except for the one that Jon Grudin had coached them to. Okay.
Right.
And then Jon Grudin left head coaching and went into. He was an announcer. He was an analyst for. I believe it was ESPN. I could be wrong about that, but anyhow, he was a big time analyst. Did Monday Night Football. And the guy, like when he talks about football, it's like he is a guru. I mean, he knows the hot route and this and all that, and it's just crazy to hear him talk. And he's real energetic, and he's real, the old has that football scour looking face as a head coach. I mean, he's full of life and animosity,
right.
and all kind.
Now, is he an older gentleman?
He's about my age.
Okay.
We could look it up real fast. It says he's 58. I was going to say he's about my age. He looks young. I mean, he doesn't look that old, but he's 58 years old.
Right. When I looked it up a few minutes ago, there was some pictures attached to, I guess, what the latest headlines, maybe some of the recently within the last few days or whatever, and they were showing a guy that looked younger. So
right.
Maybe it was one of the players.
So
that they were
there
showing.
he is, and this is when he was an analyst, because you can see the microphone clip here coming through to his ear. See that? That's him. Okay.
He looks familiar.
And anyhow, Jon Grudin, he has been turning this Las Vegas Raiders organization around, getting them back into their winning ways. And earlier in the week, or I think over last weekend, PJ, some emails came out that were found as a part of an investigation that's still being done on the Washington football team, because they used to be called the Washington Redskins. They were being forced to change their name. Right. Okay. And so apparently there was some not so good things going on within the organization about that. And so the NFL has started an investigation into, what's going on in Washington. Okay. Right. Well, as a part of that, apparently there were some email chains that were led back to Jon Grudin, and this is not okay. This is not me. I'm not saying what I'm about to say because I'm like, oh, that was funny. I'm repeating, right, the best I can remember what the email said. He was referring to a particular African American as a person that his lips were so large it looked like he had Goodyear tires in both of them. Okay. So that's kind of the premise and he was laughing about him. Who would listen? That kind of thing. All right.
Now, okay, go ahead and finish what you're saying, Evan.
Well, you can ask me the question if you have a question.
Is it a guy that he was like friends with, or is it a guy what was he trying to be mean, making a derogatory comment about this person, racially or not?
I think it was a racial slur at him. He was not friends with him. It was a particular person within the NFL. I can't remember if it was a coach or if it was somebody that was in management or something like that. But he was like, well, who would take him for? He's just the person with. That kind of. And
I'm sure someone's listening and thinking, well, what does that matter if they were friends or not? And I'll get to that point.
Well, yeah, and that's a fair question, because sometimes but here's the thing. He had put that in emails to other people about this guy. Right. Okay. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, that began the dig. All right. So once they see this, now that email, PJ, was 11 years ago. It was from 2010. Either that or 2011. It was either 2011 was 10 years ago, or it was 2010, it was 11 years ago, okay? But nevertheless, this email was something he did 10 or 11 years ago, all right? So they start digging, and then they find emails where he is referring to the commissioner of the NFL as a faggot, and talking about the tolerance of having queers playing in the NFL.
Yikes.
And
Yeah.
went down that road. And I'm using the exact word. Again, this is not me saying, oh, isn't that funny? You know, this is me
Right.
telling you what his email said.
Right.
And then a lot of very derogatory sexual emails. Okay. So I believe today is Thursday. I think I was watching Monday Night Football when it was it dropped that he was resigning. It was.
Now, is he being forced out, or is he resigning on his own?
He says that for everything I've read, he resigned on his own. He was going to be fired.
Oh, absolutely.
He was going to be fired.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But he you know, in his statement, I brought shame to this organization, to the NFL, and now he's saying all the right things. But this head coach of a pro football team, who these emails, they now have this long litany of emails and things he's done all the way up. I think the most current they found was 2018.
Right.
And so it has started a big stir among people who are educated and followers of the NFL, saying, well, is this sort of the, quote, good old boy network that we've been tolerant of way too long? And should all of the organizations start looking a little more intently at the things?
Is it time to clean house?
Their
is what
head
they're
coaches
asking.
have been putting into emails or text messages and those kinds of things. And so I say this to tell you that, you and I have had a number of conversations about the impact that what you do on your phones and what you do on your computers has on cases. Okay, I've talked about it very detailed about the effect that it has on the outcome of legal actions. But we are living in a time where, and we've had some peripheral discussions, like the guy that had a picture of him flipping people off on his Facebook page.
Right.
But what I want to talk about for a second is the mindset of people who, and I say this at the outset, it's not right to talk like that about people, but who in this day and age, or even 10 years ago, would put that in writing?
Right. Yeah, we live in a time now where everything is being scrutinized.
Yes.
For better or for worse. And I agree that change is a good thing, and that a lot of things that have been tolerated for so long, a lot of it being outdated thinking and all that, I do agree with it going to the wayside. Now, to me, however, there is a huge difference between humor and true hatred or bigotry or something that you wholeheartedly believe that is wrong. I'm going to say that the emails and the stuff that he was putting in the emails, he wasn't trying to be funny. He was
expressing his opinion.
Right. He was expressing his opinion, but it was a wrong opinion. Okay? I understand when offensive words or stereotypes or names are offensive and can be offensive, depending on what the context is in which they're used. I think most people would be lying if they've said, I've never said anything offensive in a joking manner among my friends with the doors closed. I think at some point we have all made a comment or slur or something in a joking manner. I mean, I have black friends, and I've made black jokes with them jokingly, and they laughed, and they never told me they were offended. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we were close enough that it actually hurt their feelings. They'd have told me so. But they're jokes that I wouldn't have told if I didn't feel comfortable with the person or know the person, because then I know that they don't know me well enough that not in the right context, it could be considered offensive and wrong and hurtful. And I understand that. But I can also say that I would never put any of this stuff in writing. Now, I've put some offensive stuff in writing, but I've done it through storytelling, because sometimes in order to create a person that you're not going to like, you have to use character traits or flaws that are things that are of people who really do exist that we all universally dislike.
Sure.
You know, whether it's a type of action or a type of vernacular, whatever the case may be.
To build the villain, you have to build the villain. You have to have.
And there are some people who even find that offensive and wrong.
Right.
But I mean, I don't, because you're actually taking something that does exist and you're using it because it's a real thing. Right. And I mean, and I think those types of people will always, in some form or fashion, exist. I mean, we've talked about Hitler and the Nazis before.
Right.
I mean, it blows my mind that people thought that was okay.
Right.
There was a time when there was a leader of millions of people that got behind this guy's super wrong ideology. Mm-hmm. When I'm standing here going, I'm like, what? Right. Like, wait, what? Someone actually followed that, thought it was a good idea? It's the same with like the Ku Klux Klan and all those people. And all the race, like I watched, I'll watch these period pieces from like the 1940s and 50s when they had like whites only restaurants and stuff like that. And I've gotten so upset by seeing these things. I've like messaged black friends of mine and been like, I am so sorry for the white people of the 50s, you know?
Right.
Because it bugs me to think that it's like,
closed-minded.
Yeah, it's like that.
Totally.
How did that exist?
Right.
How did someone think that was a good idea? Like, it legitimately pisses me off.
Right.
That someone thought that was okay. But on the flip side, I think, and I know because I've laughed at it, but I think some horrible things has also created some beautiful humor.
Right.
I mean, some of the best comedians today have made jokes, created levity, and I think that's kind of the whole purpose of humor, you know, is that you look at something that is horrible and ridiculous and you're like, I can't even believe that exists. It's so stupid that it exists, and you make fun of it and you make light of it. And that's how you can maybe accept it a little bit that it actually took place.
Right.
But the problem I find is like cancel culture today wants to do away with all of that. Mm-hmm. Almost as if you're just supposed to forget that these things have happened. And the problem is you don't forget these things have happened. And it's dangerous to forget that these things have happened, because then they'll happen again. Right. Because the thing is these people that existed back then who followed Hitler, those people still exist today.
Right. Well, here's something spinning off this.
Not that I'm saying Jon Grudin.
No, I know. I guess my mind is that if it was that easy to find this type of information on one coach in a game that has been a long time coached by alpha personalities, mm-hmm. right? And played by a lot of alpha personalities.
Right.
I think that the people that are standing in line and saying, oh, how could he? Many of them had better watch out.
Oh, yeah, because they're up for grabs too.
Because now that the lid is off and one head coach has been found, if I am the general manager of any major organization in Major League Baseball, in NBA basketball, in NFL football, in college athletics, I'm saying we probably ought our due diligence to look into a lot of the backgrounds and dig deeper than just references and look at emails and resumes and talk to the people that have been around this guy and search and make sure that we're not just isolating Jon Grudin.
Right.
You know, if now that that's been done, doesn't it set the standard of what are you doing to make sure your guy's not like this?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what you're saying is, let's make sure that this just wasn't like an inside job with someone who had an agenda just against Jon Grudin.
That's right. What I'm saying is that this is a wake-up call for major industries, that their leaders should be looked at. Now, I know what you're saying. You know, it always comes back to money, right? Money can insulate you. And a company says, well, I don't want that to be exposed, so we're not going to look. And that's been done too long, obviously, because people like Jon Grudin exist, right, in positions of significant leadership.
Yeah.
A head coach in the NFL, a guy that's been an analyst on ESPN Monday Night Football.
Yeah. Here's the other side of that coin too. Like I understand the purpose of them doing, just objectively finding something on someone that was horrible. But here's the problem with the way that they're using it. When I watch a movie, okay, I'll use Remember the Titans. Love that movie.
Great movie.
Even though I'm not, it's weird. It's like I'm not a sports person, but I love sports movies, and I think a lot of it has to do with it shows the camaraderie. It shows the change that happens when you put two people who are completely different types of individuals, and then suddenly they're forced to have to come together and work together, and you see that change from within, and then by the end of the movie, they're better people. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a whole, it's an uplifting thing, mm-hmm. right? And see, that's where a lot of this cancel culture stuff, that's what it lacks in the end. Because here's the thing. They take Jon Grudin, right? He's been in this industry for how long? A long time, right? He's become a very well-known, probably well-liked person. Now all of a sudden he's a villain. So what do? They say, oh, look what he did, and then he leaves. Where's the change? I mean, they got rid of him, but where's the real change?
Where is the real change?
Because now what he's going to do is he's going to what? He's going to leave. He's going to be angry. He's going to go be a bigot and a racist and everything else somewhere else.
Right.
Why are we not taking these people who we believe are the bad guys and just, I mean, does there need to be a level of discipline? Yes, because I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I've said some offensive things in my lifetime. I've made some inappropriate jokes. I never believed any of it. But I can tell you this, I never would have put it down in writing. I never would have put it in an email. That is stupid. That is 100% like just plain stupidity. Because you're asking for trouble. At that point, you're creating a paper trail.
Right.
And it sounds like, I'm telling you, if you do these things or say these things, don't create a paper trail, which I guess I'm kind of doing. But ultimately, it's like, if he really believes the things that he said, why are we not going like, look,
how can we change that?
Right. The part of you that works well in football, that's what we want. But there's this other part of you that we need to figure out. Like, why did you say those things? And how do we understand you? You know, now here's the thing. Now there are some things that even I would say, I don't care. I'm not going to, like, you know, we talked a little bit about before the podcast, but like, pedophiles, serial rapists, there are certain people who just cannot fit within the confines of normal society, and they've got to go. There's just some things that it doesn't matter how much of it you understand or don't understand. There's something just off, completely wrong with them that's broken and can't be fixed. So they have to be removed from society. But I'm saying, like, people who are racists, I mean, some of them, it is probably so ingrained in them they can't change. In that case, then yeah, sure, I guess they got to go. But maybe that's not the case with everybody.
Or, you know, while there is a rehabilitation process, and I'm not talking about drug abuse or alcohol abuse, I'm talking about these types of things, these issues that are basically irresponsibly pursued through bashing somebody for either, you know, their religious belief or their sexual orientation or those kinds of things. That and you know, and I guess I'm not sophisticated enough to know how you rehabilitate a person. So, well, I'm sorry, and I really want to change who I am. Well,
right.
I think it's more than just lip
years
service.
and years of therapy.
That's right. And so what I'm saying is that, you know, there are good stories about men and women who have made mistakes in their careers. They've had to start all over again, and then they've advanced in what they are championing in their endeavors is something that is good and it is pure, you know. And so, right. I mean, there's a number of times coaches have gotten in trouble for other things, you know, and they lose their position, and the next thing you know, they're starting over again in high school, you know, and and you hope that they've been truly rehabilitated on whatever the shortcoming was. So, you know, I think that is in most of our natures the way we want to see it done. And I agree with you. I think that, but in something like this, it's not as easy as you stop drinking. It's not as easy as you don't take any more drugs. You know, this is a mindset, right? That, you know, that someone could 5 years from now give lip service to and say, I'm a different me. But what did we do to change the core of that person, the soul of that person, you know? Right. And so I think I am with you, and I applaud efforts to try to get at how can we change people like that, and what can we do in making, you know, and this may sound cruel, but making examples out of them may help others come to grips with the fact that you just can't be that way.
But I think if you make an example of someone, I think it needs to be something where you're not just throwing them away.
Right. Right.
The example needs to be made where you see the change and you see the growth, because otherwise, I mean, he's going to resign and then just go do a job somewhere else, you know? And I think the other thing too is that people need to start coming to terms with what and who is really offended by what, because the inconsistency I see is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Fallon does blackface on SNL how many years ago, where he's doing an impression of Chris Rock that Chris Rock was fine with. It was approved by the head writers and everything at SNL, but suddenly that clip resurfaces and he has to go on live TV and apologize for doing blackface. That was approved at the time, yet Robert Downey Jr. doing blackface in Tropic Thunder is still heralded as one of the most hilarious things ever made.
Right, right.
So it's either wrong or it's not wrong, because when Jimmy Fallon did it, it was being funny. When Robert Downey Jr. did it, it was being funny. And the thing is, and this is going to be easy for me to say as a white man, but I was not offended whatsoever by them doing blackface. And truthfully, what's the difference between Robert Downey Jr. doing blackface and the Wayans brothers doing whiteface and white chicks? And here's the thing. That didn't offend me in the least, because once again, it's the context. It was done. It wasn't done in a way that was legitimately trying to belittle an entire race of people. It was done to make people laugh. And making people laugh is to make people feel good. And sometimes you have to say something that's a little wrong or do something that's a little wrong to make somebody feel good. But at the end of the day, it's about what's right and not what's wrong. So I think in some ways we have to stop focusing on what's wrong about certain things and focus on what's wrong when it's really wrong.
Right. Defining when it is offensive and defining, yeah. Well, anyway, it's been a big story, and it's going to have ripples. It's going to have ripples a number of different ways, and we've just touched on a few of them.
Right.
You know,
or it'll be the flavor of the week, and in a month it'll be gone and disappear.
That's one thing true about the society that we live in is that bad news is only bad news until the next bad news comes.
Yeah, it's that fast food nation we live in. Right. It's, he'll resign, and then everybody who supports the cancel culture will go, well, he's gone, so let's move on to whatever's next.
Right. Right. Well, we've talked about some bows and arrows and killing people in Norway, and we've talked about
whiteface, blackface.
Yeah, it's such an uplifting podcast, but this is
the most serious one we've done in a while.
And there are, to me, what was fascinating to me was how quickly we can get our hands on an email from 2010 and 2011. Okay. And so the legal lesson in this is that your trail will come to light.
Right.
What you do at night gets exposed in the day, you know, that type of thing.
Right.
And so as attorneys, we are seeing more and more of this in cases. We are seeing, I mean, a great number of interrogatories now focus on digging deep into electronic data.
Right.
I mean, I think I've told you this before. 15 years ago, when I signed up a new case, I did not have an inventory of electronically stored information. I didn't have to do an inventory of where could there be evidence, like Facebook's, Twitter. You know, I didn't have to do that. But now, when I take on a new client, I'm saying, like, hey, we need to have talk. What can I find on your Twitter? What can I find on your phone? What can I find on your iPad? What can I find on your emails? What is your email address?
Right.
You know, how long do you store emails? We have to have that talk with every one of our clients now.
Well, here's a question I have for you, and I don't know if I don't know if we use this. This may not, but I don't know if it exists, and you do know about it. But it also kind of goes into how they were able to find what they found through these emails. I mean, we send how many emails in our lifetime? And if you go back in 2010, 11 years ago, that's a lot of emails. So is there software that they're running these emails through where you can punch in keywords and it'll flag certain emails that have those keywords or phrases? Do we use something like that?
I mean, I can search. You can search I can search my emails on my phone back to when I came
using
here.
certain words.
I can search emails and use a certain word and find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's true.
You know, the other thing is you know, pull up your texting. You pull up your texts like right now. Let's we'll just do take your text messaging, and on your text messages, just thumb down like that. Does yours show a search bar?
Yeah, I have a search bar at the top.
Okay, search on that. Like, I'm going to take the word tickets. Tickets. That's something that's talked about a lot in my family, like going to events and things. And then it says, see all. Here are, the last time the word tickets was in my text messaging was to my wife at 10:39. I'm going to scroll. Watch this, PJ. I'm going to scroll. There's the one from today at 10:39. Right. Watch this. Every text message I've sent on this phone dating back to 11/18/15. So November of 2015, I have an email from someone saying I can for sure come through on 2 of the 3 things. Let me see if I can look into getting some tickets.
Wow.
So
I just did the same thing. I typed in fart, and I have emails going all the way back to September 11th of 2009. 2009.
On your phone. So let me tell you something.
And it's a lot of messages where the word fart's been used.
Well, yeah, I just scrolled. I mean, you can look. I mean, I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And you take any word, and that you realize there's data on that phone that you're holding in your hand that can show something you did or said many, 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 many years ago. And that is powerful.
Oh, wow.
So
I typed in the word gay, and I've got a lot of messages.
So
going back to 2011.
And my point is
I'm not going to tell you what they all say.
No, listen though. Listen to this.
Right.
My point is that if it's that easy for PJ and Travis, then why are we not taking all of these coaches, grabbing their phones, searching those text messages? And if Jon Grudin's head rolls for this, and it should.
Right. No, and I agree with you. He is in the wrong, and there needs to be. I don't think he should be able to resign. I think there needs to be discipline, and I think something needs to be done that says, "Hey, look, we're gonna take this person, and we're gonna turn this around. And if it doesn't turn around, then you throw them in the trash."
Well, hopefully it does. Hopefully something good comes in this. My point is, electronically stored information and electronic data is easy to search.
Right.
I mean, you can find it. We just did it. We just proved it. Case in point. All right.
I'm gonna have to go back through here and look at some of these messages. I'm gonna have to go back and start typing in random words.
Yeah. Hey, this has been more Law Light, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtree. Always a different topic on a different day. And today we got a little serious, but it was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
Very good discussion. I enjoyed our time, PJ.
Me too.
Until next time, you can check us out on all of our platforms of social media. FWHlegal.com is where you can check us out on our website. And until next time, you all have a wonderful day.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free.
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
Well, I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth.